welcome back to Box Office Maniacs. The news that brought us back on to Box Office Maniacs isn't good news.
I was pretty bummed out about this all day.
Of course, we were talking about the death of the legendary Wes Craven.
The father, basically, of one of the greatest movie monster icons of the 20th century.
And he's talking about Vampire in Brooklyn.
I'm talking about the one and only Freddy Krueger.
So we thought it would be, interesting to get on here and pay a little tribute to Wes Craven and to go through sort of his filmology. Is that how you say it? Filmology?
Filmography.
That's what I said, right?
You said filmology.
No, I did not. I said filmonology.
That's not even a word, Dave.
Philanopoly.
Swamp Thing.
Exactly. So I decided to go to his Philanopoly and look at the movies he actually directed in his career. And I actually had brought up a list, and it's kind of weird because as much as a fan I've been of Wes Craven, there's like half of these movies I've never seen or even heard of.
Maybe I've heard of them, but I haven't actually... I know I haven't seen them all, so...
So his first film he directed was The Last House on the Left. And, after I'd watched Nightmare on Elm Street, I kind of wanted to see what else he had done. And I remember my parents talking about going to see this movie in like a drive-in or something and couldn't believe they went and seen it. And they said it was like one of the most terrifying movies they'd ever seen. And, it was something they had never forgotten since they've seen it for the first time. So I was like, all right, well, so I went to watch it. And even back when I seen it, probably in the 80s was when I first watched it, it's still shocking. I mean, it's still shocking today watching it. It's really an upsetting, shocking film.
And the funny part is, about this, is that even though I've seen the remakes of The Last House on the Left and The Hills of Eyes, I've never actually seen the originals. Or I don't remember seeing the originals. I might have seen them and I don't realize it. It's been a long time. But I know I've seen the remakes of these.
So The Last House on the Left came out in 1972. And then his next film, The Hills Have Eyes, 1977. Now, did you see that one?
Not the original.
That's what I'm saying. You're killing me.
I've seen the remakes of them, but I didn't see the original films.
Well, again, this is a great film that I used to watch over and over when I was growing up. And if it wasn't for Nightmare on Elm Street, I would have probably never went back and watched these films. The Hills Have Eyes is just a spectacular film. And it's one of those all-American family films, where they go out to go on vacation and everything just goes wrong. So in 1978, he directed Stranger in Our House.
And I've never seen that.
Not only have I never seen it, I've never even heard of it.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
I actually looked up the trailer for it, and it has Linda Blair in it.
And then the next movie he did was in 1981. He did Deadly Blessing.
I remember going into the video stores and seeing the cover of this. Have you ever seen the cover of Deadly Blessing?
I don't remember.
Look it up real quick. I'll wait.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing this.
For some reason, I remember this cover. I don't know what it is about it, but I remember seeing this all the time as a teenager.
It's the boobs, Dave.
Woohoo! Oh, is that what it is?
It's probably the boobs.
Woohoo! But as many times as I saw the cover of this, I, again, never saw this film. So once again, I looked at the trailer of it, and it's about a bunch of Amish people trying to kill a group of young women.
And believe it or not, I think Scream Factory is coming out with a Blu-ray of that.
Ernest Borgnine actually plays one of the Amish people in this. Just looks really weird.
So the next movie is the first film that I ever got introduced to anything Wes Craven, and one that Dave and I had reviewed a year ago. It is called Swamp Thing.
Yep, I mean, that was my go-to film. Again, growing up, I used to watch Swamp Thing non-stop. I thought it was like one of the greatest things ever.
And if you get a chance, go ahead and watch our review for Swamp Thing.
And the movie, unfortunately, hasn't really held up very well over the years.
I don't know. I still, like I said in the review, I still like the nostalgia of it.
So after Swamp Thing in 1984, he directed For Invitation to Hell.
I do not know this one at all.
So after Invitation to Hell, his next film is what made his career. And what is that, Vince?
Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, and let me tell you, let me go back down memory lane about this film a little bit. We used to have, back in the day when there were still movie theaters that were huge movie theaters, there was this movie theater down my street called the Kingsland. And it was one of those old movie theaters, like, they had a gigantic screen, and then they had a balcony even, but then they closed off the balcony, and they put a screen about the size of our computer monitor up there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, just to get some extra money, and there was probably maybe like 7 rows of chairs up there, and a screen about this big that was built into the wall up on the balcony.
Yeah, because I remember that because we went and saw one of the other classic icon movie films, Friday the 13th, 3 and 4.
My parents went to the Kingsland, and they came back and they told me that they were downstairs watching a movie on the big screen. I don't remember what movie they even went to go see. But they're like, well, we went to go see this, and we couldn't even hear it because the people up in the balcony were screaming so loud, we couldn't even hear this movie. And and I was like, well, what is it? She's like, I don't know. A nightmare something or another. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever this is, I'm going to go see it. Never heard of it. Had no clue what it was about. So the next day, I went to the Kingsland, went up in the balcony, and there was maybe about not even a dozen people there, and experienced the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And my perception of horror movies at that point changed forever.
My Nightmare on Elm Street introduction actually didn't come with the first film. I actually saw the second film before I saw the original. We rented it, and I watched it, and I was just completely blown away by it. I was like, this is fantastic. I got to see the original as soon as I could. And the only reason we saw Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is because Nightmare on Elm Street 1 was actually rented. It was already out, so we couldn't find it. So I saw Nightmare on Elm Street 2 first, and then went and rented Nightmare on Elm Street. And like Dave said, my whole perception of horror and horror writing and special effects and the whole, everything just was like, wow. It was like, it changed. It was like Star Wars of the horror genre.
And it's weird, after something like A Nightmare on Elm Street, it should have catapulted Wes Craven into greatness. Then right after he did that, he did a TV movie, and then he made a sequel to Hills Have Eyes, which wasn't that great. And then right after that, apparently he did 5 episodes of the Twilight Zone TV series.
I think at that time too, they were starting on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which he didn't have very much involvement in.
All right, so after Chiller and Hills Have Eyes Part 2 and the Twilight Zone, he did, you ready for this one?
Deadly Friend. One of the best horror films ever, right, Dave?
Yeah, after I went and seen that, I was crazy over that movie, and I don't really know why to this day that I went nuts over that film. I remember telling Vince over and over and over and over and over how great that movie was.
I remember I had the book of Deadly Friend. I was reading the book for a while, and it got boring. It got really boring. I don't know if I would really want to see this movie. Eventually, I did see it. I didn't see it when it came out, but I did see the film, and yeah, it's not a horrible film, but it's not that great either.
It's sort of like Swamp Thing. It didn't age very well, or at all.
He came back to the world of Freddy Krueger with A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, where he wrote the story, he executive produced the film, and at one point he was supposed to direct it. but they went with a different director. They went with Chuck Russell, I believe, with that one. It is actually one of the best sequels of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Well, I personally think it's the best sequel out of all of the however many they made of them.
Well, 8 if you include Freddy vs. Jason.
So, by the time Serpent and the Rainbow came out in 1988, I mean, I was a huge Wes Craven fan. I mean, after watching Hills of Eyes, and, of course, the greatest movie of all time, Deadly Friend, you know, when this came out, I was like, oh, I gotta see it. I was really big into Wes Craven around 1988. So, I went to go see Serpent and the Rainbow, and it kind of disappointed me a little bit.
I actually enjoyed that one. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. And it starred Bill Pullman from Spaceballs and Independence Day.
So after Serpent and Rainbow, he tried to come back with another Freddy Krueger type of character because, I mean, since Freddy's pretty much what made his career, I remember reading Fangor magazine about Shocker, and this came out in 1989. Don't you remember all that?
Oh, yeah. I remember Shocker.
Yeah, and it was one of those, you know, oh, this is the new Freddy Krueger. I mean, he's coming back and he's going to create this really cool new villain and it's going to be awesome. And actually, Shocker wasn't that terrible. I mean, it wasn't horrible. And I barely remember it. It's been probably since 1989 since I've seen the movie.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad of a film, but some of it got kind of ridiculous. It had a really good soundtrack. I really liked this because it had a whole lot of rock.
And believe it or not, Vince, I still have that soundtrack on CD.
So do I.
So once he did Shocker, and he returned to... He did a lot of TV stuff, which I didn't even know. He returned with Night Visions, where he wrote and directed a TV movie.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I haven't either. I never even heard of it. And then back in 1991, he returned again to The People Under the Stairs, which, again, I wasn't that crazy about.
I went to the theater and watched that one. I actually saw that one, like Shocker. I saw that one in the theater, and I don't know. I thought it was all right. It was very weird. It's a very strange movie.
For me, it's on the same level as, like, Serpent and the Rainbow.
Okay, do you remember this next one? The Nightmare Cafe, the TV series?
No, I don't remember that one either.
I remember it vaguely. It didn't last long, but it was he did the TV series, and it actually starred Robert Englund. Robert Englund was kind of a host of it more than he was the actual like star of it. It was like an anthology series that I remember.
So then he finally returns to Nightmare on Elm Street with Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 1994.
You know, how is he going to do this? And he did it in the most imaginative, most awesome way I think you could have done Freddy Krueger. I loved that movie. Absolutely loved it.
I don't know. It was weird. It was too weird for me, probably. I didn't hate the film, but it was just a bizarre film to bring a movie character into real life to haunt the actors and director or whatever. I don't know. It was just really a strange film. I can't really say I love the film.
I don't think so. I liked it. I liked it because it was a different take on it. It was a new look at it, and I liked the fact that it was something else had taken over. And I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the movie.
All right. So next, also in 1994, he released Vampire in Brooklyn.
I'm gonna say it did look interesting from the trailers. That I thought, okay, well, yeah, like Eddie Murphy playing a vampire and Wes Craven directed it. What could go wrong?
And I actually went to go to the show to go see those events.
It wasn't all that great.
At the point of his career, it sort of seemed like he was kind of up and down and just made a couple of good films, but a lot of them were mediocre. And I think everybody was hoping he could return to the horror genre and create it again, because there was a huge drop-off at that point. At around, 1996, 1995, there wasn't any really good horror films at all. Wes Craven came along, and then, just like with a stick of dynamite, exploded the entire horror genre once again with what, Vince?
Scream.
And I was actually living in Florida, and I saw it with you, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
My wife and I went to go see it first at this really weird theater you guys had there. It was just a bizarre theater. It was very colorful, I remember. It seemed like the doors were like right out of an asylum or something. It was just a bizarre movie theater. But my wife and I went there all the time because it was a cool place, though, and that's where I saw Scream.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I liked the Scream series. I like the whole. To this day, I mean, I like all 4 films.
But that really brought the horror genre back to theaters again, and it gave it the kick in the butt that it needed. And of course, a bunch of horror movies came out after that, trying to ride on its coattails of success. But there was only one Scream, just like there's only one Nightmare on Elm Street.
So then, of course, he made Scream 2 the year after, which I thought was a great film. I thought it was as good as the first one. I didn't think it was better, but it was as good as the first one.
Like I say, when my wife and I went to go see that for the first time, just everybody in the theater was literally screaming, the title of the movie. But, I mean, that's what made that movie so fun. I mean, everybody was on the edge of their seat. The one sequence I can remember was, I think it was Ghostface, and he was in a car, and they crashed into something, and she was like, trying to crawl over him or something like that. I mean, everybody in the theater was just screaming, and you're like, oh my God! The whole crowd, for me, is what made Scream 2.
I remember that was a pretty intense scene. Like I said, I liked the second one. I didn't think it was better than the first one, but it was good. It was right on par with it.
Well, if I watch it now, I don't know if I'd probably have the same reaction to it, but just seeing it with all those people and have everybody having that energy, that's one of the reasons why seeing a horror movie in the theaters is totally different than sitting, on your couch by yourself watching it. I mean, you have that whole energy, and it just builds up, and it's what makes horror films fun.
His next film, which was a drama, I believe, called Music of the Heart.
So then after that, he decided, I guess, he needed to return to the horror genre once again with Scream 3. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember much about Scream 3. I think I've only ever seen it once. I do have the DVD of it. I should go back and rewatch it, I guess. But I don't even really remember that well.
I remember going, I was like, oh, Scream 3. I couldn't wait to go see it. My wife couldn't wait to go see it. We went to the theaters and had the worst experience of our lives. We had a crowd of nothing but hooligans. I mean, they were high schoolers. There was literally like, and I'm not talking like high school, like, okay, the 17, 18-year-olds. I'm talking like the 16, 15-year-olds. People that shouldn't have been in the theater to begin with, being that it was a rated R movie. So we had all those people in there. We had early college students in there, and you could not hear the movie whatsoever. We could not hear the movie. So we ended up getting free tickets to come back and see the movie. And once we did get to go back and see it, we actually really enjoyed it. So after Scream 3, he pretty much didn't do any other directing until he got to 2005, and he did the movie Cursed,
which I've never heard of.
I saw posters for this, but never saw the movie. Then in 2005, later in 2005, he did Red Eye.
Now this I actually did hear about, and I remember watching the trailers for it, but I never saw it.
And it was actually really pretty good.
So in 2006, he came out with another film which I've never even heard of. And what is that, Vince? I'll let you pronounce that.
Paris J.
I mean, his career at this point, after he did the Scream, it would have been nice for him to come back and just do one another big horror genre film where, he, like you said, he would just blow everybody away again. But then instead of that, he made My Soul to Take,
which we did a review of as well. And I have to say, when I saw the trailers for My Soul to Take, it actually looked like a really decent horror film. Like he was actually going to come back and make a really good horror film once again. And I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was horrendous. Just probably the worst movie of his that I've seen.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. It didn't even come close to what he did with Shocker.
So I guess he's trying to redeem himself by making Scream 4 in 2011, and I think he did. I mean, we also reviewed that. It's on our channel if you want to go back and look at it. And I really enjoyed Scream 4. I thought it was a really good film.
I loved Scream 4. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a definite return for him. He redeemed himself completely with that one.
I enjoyed going through this whole list, too, because there's a lot of stuff out there that I've never seen or heard of by him.
So that's our rundown of the Wes Craven filmography. I have to say, I'm really sad that he's gone.
And actually, the great thing about filmmakers is they're never going to go away, because if you just want to know them, or you want to know, their body of work, all you got to do is pop in the DVD or your old VHF tape or your Laserdisc or whatever you have and watch them. And it's all there in front of you. His whole life's work is in film, and that's what's so great about a good director, is he's never really gone.